Poor bastard. My name is Baldwin, and I will be reading the first chapter of Bloodhound in Blue, Chapter 1, General Character. The Bloodhound possesses, in a most marked degree, every point and characteristic of those dogs which hunt together by scent. He is very powerful, and stands over more ground than is usual with hounds of other breeds. From the Bloodhound Breed Standards, 1894. November 2003. All units be advised, Salt Lake City County Sheriff's Office is in pursuit of a homicide suspect in the neighborhood of 1700 South 400 East. They are requesting that city officers respond to the area to assist. The dispatch came across all channels shortly before 1 a.m. Preceded by 3 long beeps signaling an event in progress. It was sure to rise the pulse of any officer within a 15-minute radius of the location. Given Salt Lake City's relatively small size with a population of just under 190,000 and an urban layout on a grid plan, this meant that most everyone working the graveyard shift that night. The city's wide streets, the stuff of legend dating back to the origins in its mid-1800s. Brigham Young, the Mormon Moses, who led his people on a westward exodus to finally settle on the banks of the Great Salt Lake, the next closest thing to the Dead Sea anywhere on the earth, wanted streets wide enough that a wagon team could turn around without resorting to profanity. Officer Mike Sirio, driving a half-ton Chevy Silverado truck with a turning radius not much better than a wagon team, heard the dispatch and headed toward the reported location. Not known for using expletives lightly, Sirio resorted to profanity several times before the night ended. His police truck came specifically equipped for canine teams, with an eject button on the dash that released a cage door on the back of the truck. The patrol door could deploy dynamically and catch a fleeing suspect on the run. Now, JJ never rode in the back of the truck, though the idea of a bloodhound deploying dynamically was probably better to ponder than to actually do. If he wasn't sitting on the passenger seat getting double takes from other motorists and pedestrians, JJ was likely curled up on the rear bench seat, fast asleep. It caused no ending of ribbing for Sirio from his fellow officers when he showed up to a crime scene. Lights blazing everywhere from a multitude of police, fire, and medical vehicles, radios squawking orders and updates, neighbors congregating on nearby lawns and peering from doorways. The scenes all had a well-practiced chaos with an energy all their own. Into the commotion, Sirio pulled up his truck, emblazoned with a canine squad sign in bright, bold letters on all sides. As often happened, he'd have to wake up his partner, who would gingerly emerge from the truck, yawn, stretch, in a series of ancient and innate dog poses that have inspired countless yoga practices from Bangkok to Berkeley. Fortunately, on this night, JJ was already awake, and if not eager, at least ready for action. Sirio had taken JJ out to investigate a separate sighting of a possible suspect in a nearby neighborhood shortly after he learned that county officers had lost the vehicle that they were pursuing. 10 minutes later, dispatch reported the homicide suspect's vehicle found, but neither driver nor passenger were anywhere in sight. Sirio didn't go directly to the scene because he had heard that canine officers had their dogs out and he wouldn't tread on their turf unless asked. He continued to work where he was, but JJ had no interest in the possible sighting. He just went out for a walk. "Hey, Mike," called Sirio's boss, Sergeant John Ritchie, over the phone, the radio. "I'm down at the scene. Don't worry about that sighting. Let's get you here to the car where we know the bad guys were." Sergeant Ritchie, head of Salt Lake City's canine squad, had arrived at the scene of the abandoned vehicle and watched as 2 canine officers with their German shepherds attempted to pick up a track. Seeing that they weren't having any luck, he approached them. "The car has been here 10-15 minutes, Ritchie said. "They're not going to be hiding in the next yard. If you want to get a good beat on these guys, put your dogs away and wait for the Bloodhound and Officer Sirio to show up." Trained to apprehend uncooperative suspects, German shepherds also sniff out narcotics, firearms, explosives, cadavers, and living humans. They excelled at this last skill within a contained area such as a building or a neighborhood block. Some have tracked suspects beyond a specified block, but it's not their specialty. But every handler believes that his dog is the best. It's a belief necessary for success, as if the dog needs the unwavering confidence to do the job. But that doesn't always leave room for cooperation with other dog handlers. Coming from anywhere else, these county canine officers might have responded to someone by telling them to put up their dogs with their tight-wound wagon turn equivalent of "go fly a kite." But they complied. Sergeant Ritchie had been training police dogs longer than anyone else in the Salt Lake Valley. He started many of the active dog programs. He had earned the respect that they showed him. Although renowned as an expert with shepherds, his experience with bloodhounds consisted only of what he had seen with Officer Serio and JJ. Others in the police canine community resisted or doubted bloodhounds, but Ritchie's philosophy about using four-legged animals to capture two-legged criminals was simple. Whatever works. I don't care if it's a fucking pig. Come on, JJ, this is a big one, Serio said nervously to his partner on the drive over. We gotta do good on this one. Ritchie had put his neck out for them. Serio was relatively new to the canine unit, and Ritchie, as department head, was newer still. Standing 6'2" and weighing 210 pounds, only if he happened to be wearing 9-inch platforms while carrying a 50-pound bag of dog food over his shoulder, Serio was one of the shortest police officers on the force. JJ, on the other hand, was taller, longer, and a good 10 pounds heavier than his fellow police dogs, although still on the lean side for bloodhounds. He combined regal and goofy, all in the same expression. Even the reticent couldn't help but smile at his approach. Bystanders' smiles often disappeared, however, when JJ's affable greeting left thick, sticky strands of translucent drool everywhere. The county canine officers watched Serio and JJ arrive, but they stood aside. Ritchie gave Serio a determined look. His briefing all business. That's the suspect vehicle. It's been here for 15 minutes. We have no idea which direction they went. It's all yours. Parked in the street was with asphalt on one side and a concrete sidewalk on the other. The car was not the easiest spot to start a track. An ideal track is when a suspect gets out of a car and runs across a big grassy field. But that's a rare luxury in the city. Concrete and pavement don't hold odors as well as vegetation. But JJ had been trained in this environment, so he wasn't on completely unfamiliar ground. Serio began his short routine. He sat JJ down, double-checked his harness, which consisted of leather with a padded chest brace and a D-ring on the center of his back, where the leash is hooked. The idea is to minimize any directional influence on the dog when tracking. Once satisfied, Serio looked at JJ and said, "Do you want to go to work?" JJ immediately bellowed. Perhaps foreign at first, but instantly recognizable. Serio stuck JJ's nose inside the car on the driver's side and let him get a good whiff. Now, it's surprising how little time a trailing dog spends at the introduction of a scent. The movies depict this with a bit of exaggeration. A sequence of carefully choreographed camera angles show the dog inhaling like a wine connoisseur, while dramatic notes and the musical score drive the point home. The dog has picked up a scent. Once Serio directs JJ's nose toward the driver's seat and tells him to get to work, he's on it for less than a second before whipping his head around to look for a track leaving the car. Using a 15-foot lead, Serio, not unlike a fly fisherman, casts JJ in different directions emanating from the car. JJ seemed to pick up something heading east toward a nearby house. Sergeant Ritchie, following 10 to 20 feet behind him so not to get in the way, repeatedly asked, "Is this it? Is this it? You got it. Hang on," Serio would respond each time. I don't know yet." JJ followed the track across the street, around the corner, and then stopped. It was as if he was saying, "No, that's not it." Serio took him back to the car, checked westbound through the front yard of another house. No luck there either. In hindsight, Serio suspects that JJ was following the trails of different officers and canines that had initially searched the area. Even though JJ had been presented the inside of the suspect's car with a scent to follow, it's natural for the dog to inventory all the smells and where they lead until, in theory, he either matches the scent inside the car or picks up the track going farthest away from the scene. While JJ showed some interest in the first few tracks, he hadn't signaled to Sirio yet that he'd found what he wanted. On the next cast, JJ sniffed a track slowly and methodically northbound across a paved driveway that led to a tall wooden fence between two houses. When he got to the fence, his tail started wagging. He jumped up and down a little bit, and he put his front paws on the fence. Sirio waited a minute, wanting to be sure. Sensing his master's hesitation, JJ let out a really big bay. That's what Sirio had been hoping for. He could finally answer Sergeant Ritchie's repeated question. I'm pretty sure they went over this fence. Sirio and JJ could navigate most fences they encountered by themselves, but this one, over 6 feet high, required some able-bodied assistance. Shepherds can make a jump like this gracefully, but with 90 pounds of gangly bloodhound, it is not pretty. Sirio climbed up on the fence, waited on the other side. JJ put his paws on the fence as high as he dared, about 2 feet shy of the top. Richie scooped up JJ's hind legs and pushed his butt over. Sirio caught him in a barely controlled collapse. Once over the fence, his legs safely beneath him, JJ hooked into the track with gusto, baying left and right. Sirio immediately got on his radio, a device strapped to his chest which required just the touch of a button. I've got a hot track headed north from the suspect vehicle to the next street. In their patrol cars, county and city officials began scouting the area a few blocks ahead of JJ's location in hope of either getting a visual on the suspects or using their overhead lights as an advertisement, scaring them to the ground so that the canines could do what they do best. The longer a suspect stays on the move, the higher the chances of his being caught. Officer Barry Larson, another Salt Lake City canine officer, had been waiting for Sirio's calls back at the scene with Aldo, his 5-year-old German Shepherd. The city's street patrol dogs would be used instead of the county's because they were already familiar with working with Bloodhound. Larson and Aldo caught up to the track in progress quickly, running anywhere from 5 to 45 feet behind Sirio and JJ as circumstances warranted. A patrol dog follows closely behind for 3 primary reasons. Foremost is protection. There's nothing stealthy about a baying bloodhound yanking his handler behind him. While actively tracking, both are exposed and, at least temporarily, defenseless against the potentiality of armed individuals they are chasing. The patrol dog team allows them to focus all their energies on finding and following the trail. Second is speed. If a suspect flushes, the patrol dog can catch him. Third is another nose. Sometimes the bloodhound focuses so much on the scent of one suspect, he might miss another suspect who splits off, hides in the bushes. JJ could blow right by somebody hiding while following the trail of another person. If this happens, the patrol dog can pick up the scent of the guy in the bushes and lead to him. That's what happened this night. Or so they thought. After navigating the fence and heading northbound to the next block, JJ followed a track that cut to the left along the sidewalk. He was baying and pulling hard, so Sirio knew they were following a strong track in that direction. Hey, Larson called out, I got something here. Aldo picked up an air scent that led off the track that JJ had been following. Larson knew his dog well, and Aldo, barking up a storm, was clearly alerting to something or someone beneath a camper trailer parked off the street on a large side yard. Sirio stopped for a few seconds to look back, but JJ continued westbound, so they kept going, knowing they could still be tracking the other suspect. Richie peeled off with Larson and Aldo to provide assistance. They saw a man lying beneath the camper and lit him up with flashlights. Salt Lake City Police Department, Larson called out. Show me your hands! Show me your hands! No hands. Larson let his dog go, and before you could say, that's gonna hurt, Aldo dashed under the camper and attached himself by the jaws to the man's arm. Knowing the suspects were reported as armed and dangerous, Larson and Aldo did what they were supposed to do when the man didn't comply with a direct challenge. Unfortunately for everyone involved, especially the man under the trailer, he wasn't one of the suspects. It took the officers a while to sort that out, but the man whom Aldo had bitten was homeless and happened to pick the underside of a camper as the best place to sleep for the night. By that time, Sirio and JJ were gone, alone and unprotected. JJ continued tracking west for another 2 blocks before doing a button hook to the left and dragging Sirio down a narrow alley between 2 houses. Concerned about not having backup and heading into a dark yard at 1:30 in the morning on a track that probably led to at least one of the reported armed suspects, Sirio got on the radio. "Hey guys, I'm still on this track. Give me some help here." Behind the houses, JJ's head popped up, and he started doing the Stevie Wonder. The term canine handlers use when a scenting dog gets caught up in the cloud of a human scent. JJ's head was waving back and forth while he pranced left and right, sniffing the air. Sirio knew that the suspect was close, that he had probably gone to ground and was hiding nearby. When an individual stays in one place, the scent coming off his body has time to build, pool in the air and drift around, no longer leaving a linear trail. The dog has to work the edge of the scent cloud until he can isolate the origin. This is the most vulnerable time for both dog and handler, because they don't know where the suspect is hiding, but he knows exactly where they are. Sirio drew his gun and frantically looked around, trying to spot the guy while still attempting to work JJ along the scent trail. Because it was too dark to see much, he dropped JJ's leash and took out his flashlight, aiming it high and low in all directions. Too many places to hide. JJ swung to the right and ran to a 3-foot chain link fence enclosing the adjacent backyard. Baying to beat the band, JJ wanted over that fence. Sirio lit the area and noticed a boat on an unattached trailer. He also noticed someone underneath one of the wheel wells of the trailer. "Salt Lake City Police," Sirio yelled, aiming his gun at the man. "Let me see your hands. Get your fucking hands in the air right now." Officer Randy Honeywell arrived to provide much-needed backup. Then Larson and Aldo came full speed into the backyard. JJ was baying. Aldo was barking. Sirio, Honeywell, and Larson were issuing challenges and yelling at the guy to comply. Both Sirio and Honeywell had drawn their weapons on the suspect. With 2 hands, Larson was holding on to Aldo, still juiced from his previous bite and itching for another. Pumped with adrenaline, sensing the frenzied commotion from all the yelling and frustrated at not being released, Aldo reached up between Sirio's legs and bit him on the inner thigh. Sirio was thankful that the police academy had trained him to always keep his trigger finger on the side of the gun until he had made a conscious decision to shoot. He was also thankful that Aldo did not give him a full bite, just a slight small puncture with some scraping. But it still hurt like hell. Outnumbered by at least 12 legs, the homicide suspect beneath the boat finally complied with the officer's requests. They took him into custody without further incident. His partner was shortly caught afterwards by a patrol officer driving a few blocks ahead of Sirio's location. Drug possessions, stolen vehicles, burglaries, armed robberies, multiple counts of aggravated assault with a deadly weapon, and more. The arrested suspects were career criminals with a combined total of more than 20 arrests and 110 charges over the previous 2 decades. Odds are likely that they would have gotten caught somewhere along down the line after committing some other crime, but they would have escaped that night, if not for Bloodhound's unique gifts and his handler's long bout to prove their worth.